Hello, 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 and welcome. So let's talk correct plank form. You have probably seen thousands of different planks on Facebook, on videos, and I can tell you 90% of the time, I sit there and cringe as I want to correct people's form. A lot of times you'll see some sunken shoulders. You may see either piked hips or hands clasped together. Some of those things are just things that we used to do, and some of them are just that we know better ways now based on functional anatomy and how we want the body to move and to look, that we don't do them anymore. So let's first talk about why planks have become such an important part of working your core. Well, the number one reason is because your core is actually anything that affects your spinal column. So think of any muscle group that ties directly into your spinal column. The reason being is that your spinal column really has no bony support, right? So like you have bones that support your shoulder, you have bones that support your hips, bones that support your legs and your arms, but you have one spinal column that comes straight down. And here's the kicker. Every single nerve ending in your body comes into and out of your spinal column. So moving your pinky toe, moving every single muscle, movement, ligament, arm in your body comes because your brain connected to all those nerve endings that run down your spinal column to tell your bicep to contract to lift something. That tells your foot to walk forward and how to walk forward, and if it's stepping on a pebble, how to move itself so that way you don't fall over stepping on that pebble. So that way you can move in general. Everything comes down to having that kind of a supported spinal column. So really we work our core because we want to support our spine. That is the key to life. If you have a problem with your spinal column, you're going to have a problem with movement, with walking, with grasping, with muscle strength in general. So it's really important that the exercises that we're doing are always supporting our spinal column. So a plank works in that because when you're in that supported position, you are keeping all of those muscles contracted that kind of act as this brace for your spinal column without having to wear one. Nobody wants to wear a brace, right? You don't want to be in a collar or some kind of a brace for your spinal column. But when you can contract, the basic anatomy of any human has a muscular system that works at supporting that spinal column. That's why it's really important that you make sure that you have great abdominal and core support. So when looking at doing a plank, there are lots of variations that you can use. When you are just starting out, doing a plank on your knees is a wonderful way to start. To get into a plank, you would start on your knees and just place them backwards so that way you are actually on the front of the knee. And then drop your bum down. That's going to allow your shoulder to be directly over your elbow. Either that or you'll see that the elbow is forward. Now when I drop my bum down, the elbow is directly underneath. When you put your hands together and clasp your hands together, you actually roll through that shoulder. I don't know about you, but I do not want a rounded posture. I do not want that 90-year-old grandmother look. How about you? Do you want that look? I don't think so. So don't clasp your hands together because that brings your shoulders together inward. It's not what you want. You want your shoulders to be nice and wide. You want a nice wide back. You want your back and your chest to be open. So elbows right underneath those shoulders on the front of the knee. Hands are separated. Now don't push up through those shoulders. Draw up through the belly button. Think of a string pulling up from your belly button through your back up to the ceiling. Don't let your bum be sitting out here. Drop that bum down. If you're sensing some tightness through the hips, that's a great indication that you need to work on stretching your hip flexors. We'll talk about that in another video. All right, so this is your beginning exercise. Stay here as long as you can. 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 40 seconds. Work up to a minute hold, and then you can try again. All right, next step would be to come up onto your toes. When you come up onto your toes, you want to sit back into those heels. Don't come forward. You're putting all that stress onto your shoulder blades. Sit back into those heels. Nice long stretch through those calves. Same thing, belly button's pulled up. Shoulders are pulled down away from my ears, nice and engaged. That's step 2. Same thing, 10 seconds, 30 seconds. Now, if you don't have any wrist issues, you might have seen people do what's called an elevated plank. And that is perfectly acceptable. So an elevated plank you could do from here. This actually makes the plank a little bit easier. But it can often be very difficult on the wrists. Now, it will certainly strengthen more muscles through the forearm, so that's always a good thing if you're looking for additional arm strength. You really have to make sure that you're not rounding through that upper back here. It's really easy to do by pushing too hard through those palms. So you want to keep those shoulder blades pulled back and down. Always think of pulling them down away from your ears. Now you can do the same thing, come up on your toes and do this from here. This is going to take a lot more arm strength in order to do that. And you're just working more on the arm strength here, but same thing. Don't let your hips fall. That's really easy to do in this position. Keep that belly button pulled up, keep those hips pulled up, keep those shoulder blades pulled down and back. And same thing, just work on a 10-second hold, a 20-second hold, a 30-second hold, all the way up to a minute. Try to repeat that minute for 3 entire sets. And before you know it, you're working on really good mechanics for that plank. I hope that was helpful for you. I hope you now better understand why we would use planks in a training program and how important they are for you to have them as part of your regular training routine. Until next time, everybody, I'm Jocelyn Martin with Be Your Best Healthy Mom.